Is there any question?
당보디 다 마다당 안에 가서 데라 레댕게 주로 상마 아니 심팅이 배시데레 당 지랑 자와 남로 유야 당 인기랑 저래바 나지면 뭐람 자가 유스.
So first of all, I want to say hello, Tashdale, my best wishes for Marta and everyone joining. And I really, you have all my prayers for your success and everything that you wish for to come true.
Is there any question? Please let me know. It's okay. I'm very happy. So then little, I think then maybe 10-15 minutes we are question. Then I teach some maybe little teach. Then maybe some meditation. Then some question. So I think doing like that. So what is your thing, Marta?
Good idea.
Okay, now some question.
If anyone has a question, please ask. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. You can question, then you very it's look like family question. Very good friend question, but like that. So it's okay. Don't be shy. Don't be nervous. It's yeah, very close.
Okay. So I have a question that comes in my work very often. I often hear from people how when they see the mistakes they have done in the past, or when they think about certain actions they have done in the past, then the tendency is for them to think, oh, I'm such a terrible person, I don't like myself, I'm not a good person. And that creates a lot of suffering and mental distress. So if there's anything the Rinpoche can explain, that could be helpful. Yeah, so that's my question.
Leka chebe kabla nye ani yanse mi vijel be kabla ani nola no chewatan ani chawa dukcha chewa latene ani soso dukcha res di samken mampoten de yongiore ani this sem shukcha batan soso kyotan ani di karchego edila.
Oda dila karise sona soso samno tandu soso ngema dukcha chichane ta tanda katuna dukcha chan gibata mena ani semchucha nyanga yore ina yang semchucha goya mar kansene gibata yores.
Well, if one has done a bad action in the past and there was no way to change it, so then yes, that would be something to feel bad about, and really there's no way out of it. But even the bad actions we have done in the past, we can still change them.
이제단계 남배게 가르쳐서나 대둑다 상해 참아 줄티니 정확해는데 봐선다 제단계 거 님만 노르지게 기독샤데 노르지라봐 얘네 디 단다 기독샤데 바 매바서나 소소 강에 참 매바시한데 뒤짱만 기바다 요래 생규 찾고요 말했어 다시 이제 독샤 지타는 기바다 매나 안 생규 찾으란 기바다 요래 개요 말했어 이마 미카시 세투라마 독샤 있나요 세메라 매야고 롱가마 독샤 있나요 로 단디 로트 매야고 연들이 시와 sonza 소송에만 너들당 강에다 먹고 정연한테 용시 바지레스 얘네들 생각 찾고 말했어 나들 랍자들네 옹에만 알리가 지당 말이고 들때네 너들들 정선 지마도 지금 있어 안타 틀이 도대 마차와 상번된 체계에서 안데 지바이나 밑에다 항상 에만 제가 독자 지나야 들땐 단다 빼다 항상 랍자만 거란 다다 밑에 약고 차야게 그거 요레스.
So in Buddhism we have a lot of emphasis on cause and effect. And we assert that all the negative actions, for example, all the actions and negative actions, so they are like causes. But even if one has created the cause of a negative action, before the result of suffering or trouble actually ripens, so one can still change it. One can still eliminate the cause of the negative action. And for example, if one has done something bad the other day, one can still change it. Even if we've done bad actions last year, we can still change it. If one has been doing bad actions in the beginning of one's life, in the second part of one's life, one can change. And not only that, but people can see their mistakes and really develop a very strong determination to become a better person, creating a very strong wish to be the best person. And then actually, if one is able to be the best person by learning from one's mistakes, then one becomes, because of the lesson one learned, one becomes really a best person that one can be. Because there's no such thing as a bad human being. It is the negative actions that make a person bad. So if bad actions make the person bad, all we have to do is change our actions and do good actions, and then we become a good person. And so seeing that bad actions make us bad people, we don't need to feel disheartened, because all we have to do is to do good actions, and then we become good people. And so from now onwards, if one has done bad actions before, one can make the decision and think, from today onwards, I will change it and I will become a good person. And from today onwards, being a good person. Even if it's like starting from, even if one was a bad person in the past.
Yesterday, Kasan said yesterday. Kasan is on Medusha.
Even if one was a bad person, like taking yesterday and backwards, so all the time that it's not today, in the past one has been a bad person. Even if from yesterday and before one was a bad person, even if all the time before yesterday one was a bad person, there's no need to become disheartened. And why? Because from today onwards, one can be a good person. From today onwards, if one is doing good actions, and then from today onwards, one will be a good person. And in the same way, if one has been showing bad expressions and saying bad words or thinking in a bad way, so all of these sins are sins that can be changed. And by realizing one's mistakes, actually one can change them. And from today onwards, to be a good person. And so in short, there's no need to become disheartened because of the mistakes that one has done before, because all one has to do is to realize the mistakes as mistakes and to change them. And from that point onward, one becomes a good person. And so in short, a person is in itself is neither good or bad. The way we determine whether a person is good or bad is depending on one's actions. If one is doing good actions, then one is a good person. The human being himself, herself, is not bad. But in relation to the actions, doing good and bad actions, depending on this, we label a person as good or bad. And so even if a person has been doing bad actions before, it doesn't mean that the person is in themselves a bad person. If the person will change the bad actions and do good actions, so they will become a good person. Being a good or bad person depends on doing good or bad actions.
저와 독자 치바된 매 독자 차가 요와선다 드링의 손에 저와 독자 치야의 참시한 저와 상보 치바인 드링 손 미야고 차바레스.
And since being a good or bad person depends on doing good or bad actions, so that's why we take this determination, we make this decision, thinking from today onwards, I will only do good actions. And in this way, we really become a good person. For example, in the past, when the Buddha Shakyamuni was in the world, so there were many examples.
게게 항상 독자지 보고인 봐선다 그게 니랑 밑 동세바 이나 니랑 답제 담마적인 인세도 아니 그게 독자디 칸인 밑 동세바래 동세 담메 그게 그거 세바래 다 담아들 거 상기 통네 아니 그거 노트자마 하고네 아니 상기 답자din 노트자마 하고인 봐선다 그 심팅 조파기네 안디 티니선의 거 자와상보지네 베데 참바당 인지나 히라군네 제바데네 용차당 빵낸 제들 자신부터です.
So, for example, at the time of the Buddha, there was a person that was called Angulimala. So, from the start, he was not called Angulimala, but at some point in his life, he was called Angulimala. And this person, he met with bad friends, specifically with a bad teacher. And that teacher told Angulimala, I will only give you teachings after you have killed 1,000 people. And so Angulimala started going around killing people, and he killed 999 people. And then he met with the Buddha. And meeting with the Buddha, he really understood his mistakes, and he created regret from the depths of his heart. And depending on the advice of the Buddha, he developed love, compassion, and wisdom in his mind. And in this way, he became a foe destroyer, an arhat. He was able to eliminate all of his faults in their entirety and to develop an unbelievable amount of love and compassion. And in this way, he became an arhat, a foe destroyer. 배 독자 자고 어떤데 냠도야 독자 카티 발때네 가르치에서 코랑 빠바마니까 세바레스 간세나 코랑게 겨보게 빈저 참아 코랑 라야지다 겨보 왕차다 코니 참아 코랑 라야지데 코랑 빠바마 참아 세바레스 이나 디제스 가르쳐서나 양스 상기 신진의 코랑 노트 참아 코랑 하고네 하는 코랑 그 배다 텐데게 히아파 차시데 그 메상보체네 심심하고 그 펜토치야다 한고 조치야다 데네 베투티니 손에 코랑 심심하고 펜토치냐 그 항상 배 염내진 미 항상 약고 차바레스. And also at the time of the Buddha, there was a son of a king. And that son, that prince, also relying on bad advice, bad friends, he killed his parents. And the reason he did that, he killed the king and the queen. And the reason he did that was in order to have all their money, all their possessions, and all of their power. So wishing to have their money, their power, their possessions. And in order to become the king. And so in this way he killed his father. But then he killed his father that was a king. And since his father was the king, so he had this bad friend. He met this bad friend that gave him this advice, saying, if you killed your father, the king, so you yourself will become the king. And he listened to that advice. He followed that advice and he killed both his father and his mother. And he became an unbelievably bad person. But after this, he realized all of his mistakes.
저거 독자가 희망한데 송하당 그런 거 눈을 좀 하고는 그런 게 접하지네. 아니 디제의 거 잡아서 항상 망보드는 그런 미상고 잡아랬어.
He realized how he did all these bad actions and also how he was following like bad friends. And he changed his ways in a great degree and became unbelievable good person.
다나 이 보고 나는 양 미식 좀 말했어.
Also in Tibet, there was also one person in the past.
베네키나도 지수 말라리바 하고 말라리바게 안에 배 그런 거 로청청 이비 값을라 그러나 감내만 보채네. 안에 데 높아만 거 징게만 볼래 들리는 그런 거 배데 가르쳐서 손을 자샤라네. 아니 미당 다 되는 보스 그런 씬 인세트 데포모 사브레스. 다디 제라는 그런 거 요바케네 그런 거 독자인 바다 자와 독자 피바다 하고는 심팅 요바케네. 직전보다 저보다 히락된 냠내체네. 안에 대치 지와되는 세트를 상기바레스.
So you guys probably heard about him, Milarepa, Jetsun Milarepa. So Milarepa was a person in Tibet in the past, and in the beginning of his life he faced a lot of trouble, and because of this he came to a point that he actually killed many people and also animals like many horses. So he murdered many. But then later on, he created great regret about it. And in order to change and to become a good person, he went through a lot of hardships, practiced very strongly, and actually was able to become a Buddha in one lifetime.
세밀에 배차와 상고는 무슨 저와 상고진 얘기 당하는 매야고 샤네 심심망고 펜도청게들 뭐 청요를 시제들이 뭐선자 먼저 무지 지근하네 노트들 뭐 용스 그래서 이제 노트디 용야의 소소 문지신의 남산데 윤튼 말로지 노트들 까네 아니 차와 상부 초스게 봐이나 안데 고급이야 휴드레스.
And there are many accounts, many stories about people who are bad in their beginning of their life or acting in a bad way. But then later on they created regrets and became unbelievable good people, seeing their mistakes and changing and becoming unbelievable good people in the second part of their life. And the same for us, even if we have done mistakes in the beginning of our life, we can still see that and learn from it and change and become really good people in the second part.
공조다 시에당다 차도든 전선다 심독적 안 소소 로이나 아니 이게 룡아선 제가 독자치는 독자치한다 그래서 소소 그 심코로나직 참바당 제와당 시라반들이 여기 당하이나 아니 심상고치한들 되면 룡아 제가 상고던 미상고치한 심제모 펜도지도 그래서.
So also for us, we can also see, we can recognize our bad actions. And bad actions are actions that come from bad states of mind, like anger or hatred, jealousy, pride, competitiveness, and so forth, attachment. And seeing these negative states of mind creating the bad actions and seeing that as a fault and wanting to change that and stopping all this in a gradual way, stopping all the negative minds and the negative actions and changing into good actions. And good actions are actions that come from love and from compassion, from caring for the other person, from understanding. So developing these good states.
Wisdom, compassion, wisdom.
And wisdom. So if we summarize them, it's basically compassion and wisdom. And so developing good actions that come from compassion and wisdom, from caring and understanding or wisdom, and from these states of mind, doing the good actions, and so we can all do that.
Donna Simsang so simna sangi damar level capsula, Zambo level capsula, and the deal the bear carses on the social capture shin tea chocks and draw. Sim him level caps tea on the matamashi, but that initiate the man me Zambo Jivatana Pe Jopores.
Gyokpore, the Gyokpo.
very quickly.
And so also for us, if we look at our mind, we can see that even in the course of 1 minute, we have all these different thoughts coming to mind, good thoughts and bad thoughts, wanting to do good sins and bad sins. And the important thing is to be able to follow the good side, not to follow the negative states of mind, as sin that they will lead us in a bad way, but following the good states of mind. And in this way, becoming a good person. And if we do that continuously, we will become good people very quickly.
Mata, it's okay. Any question?
It's okay. Thank you, Rinpoche.
Oh, okay. Could I ask my question? Is there enough time?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. I was wondering, what are the best tools to deal with like external negativity? Because I have quite a toxic person at work, and it's really hard to keep a positive mindset about it. Because it just seems like anything I do, it's just creates a bit of stress and negativity. And what would be the best tools to kind of get myself back to that good state of mind? Because it's like, I feel like if it's coming from like an external source, it's much harder to deal with than if it comes like from within.
And so the dukcha the me pasala the chick reinan kisi mi shenta ki so ma impa the so le gyuta deva the kanzak ani chawa dukcha pena ni leka chesela ani mi dukcha tende yoje ani con the dukcha kandes the donlen cheva tan nanan the miakpot malakpat kandes chegwe. Well, for this, one needs to rely on the method of, one needs to rely on wisdom in order to do that. And so for this, one really needs to use wisdom. And in this case, if like for this person who is like toxic person, so from the outside, in your facial expression, not being very like smiling and stuff, but being a little bit kind of stern in the facial expression, so showing a little bit kind of a black face. But inside, it's extremely important at the same time to have 100% love and 100% caring for that person. But from the outside, showing a little bit of a stern expression. And how can we develop love and compassion for such person? Well, by seeing the person as a sick person. Because that person actually has a very, very severe disease. Seeing the person as a bad person because the person is under the power of anger and attachment and competitiveness. And actually, the states of mind is something that we are facing with from beginner's time. And so this is really like the worst sickness. And so seeing a person who has all these negative states of mind, is seeing them as a sick person. And in this way, we can really have compassion for them. So, for example, if in one's workplace there would be someone that would have very like severe sickness, like having wounds in their entire body, something like this, or this kind of sickness in the entire body, if they would come to work like this, we will not get angry with them, right? Otherwise, we not only that, but we will feel, what can I do in order to help them? And we will have that wish, we would care for them. And so in the same way, seeing that bad like behavior and bad states of mind of the other and understanding it is like a sickness, and seeing the other person as a sick person, one develops compassion for them.
sim dukshak nasa dire se sim nasa dukshak nasa de imba sonda da dildin ko ram me batani yon de go de imba sonda ne so so sim nasa dukshak yoga sonda ne so so ram me ba ko ne pa dukshak de hi ya ne de sending zewa jegre kol kontro chi je maras dire.
And so seeing that the sickness the other has is the sickness of having bad states of mind. And because of that sickness, because of the negative states of mind, they have no freedom. They are out of control. And under the power of anger, the person is doing bad actions. And so seeing that they are under the power of anger, wishing them to be free from anger, developing compassion.
So jing pa chu de me duksha da de no ba jing ge de yo na yang ko da se long lang ka ma ba kar chin ni nga la kyong ji yo nga la kyong me so ko da se long lang go jim me de ko long lang no ba ji yo na di yang ji go ya so so la kyong ji yo ni kyong ha ko ba ji.
Also realizing that the other person is not acting in a bad way towards oneself with no reason. There must be some reason. One has a fault. And because of some fault that one has, the other reacts with anger. So also understanding that oneself also has a mistake, wanting to change that as well.
So called long go ya ji java ji yo di so go no java di ha ko ji.
So one is doing something that makes the other person angry. And so, first of all, realizing that this is the reason. Because the other person was not one's enemy from the start, right? But there was one condition that made them an enemy, right? So it's really important to analyze, to check the situation very well in one's mind, to run it in the mind, to try to understand the reason. Why is the other person acting in this way? Because they were not one's enemy from the beginning. There was one condition, there was something that happened that made them become like that. So first, we really need to see this, to understand the situation. And the trouble of anger cannot be solved with anger. For example, if there is some fire that is burning, we will not be able to extinguish that fire by igniting another fire, right?
Control the met and Ravare, Ticana, the members of Chona, Yanker control on Yanker member sort of Mara, control Chedro, Meched Chibare. They got Chilupana is sopping Yanchina, made Mebachan.
If there is a fire burning, we want to extinguish the fire. By pouring water on the fire, we are able to extinguish the fire. We will not be able to extinguish the fire by lighting another fire, right? And in the same way, also when it comes to anger, one cannot destroy anger with anger. The way to destroy anger is with patience. So by being patient with the other, this is the way we can actually overcome the anger.
Sofa gom said Mola Duriga, they had similar long on the young Kalima here, Duriga, this Sofa Goma, did Tadon so can take it. Sofa gom said the goddess and Pacho de control Angayan onion, the Newmon sent to Changa, young on the unit and the shot they had the Koran, not Karchin long longer. Sunday, making a Koran long on the thing in Nutrin Mare, Koran said to say thing in Nutrin Mare, Koran and get to say the thing in Nutrin Mare, not Karchin long longer. In the Koran, and the chicken mice and young man do that the news young that in the Koran second into some sim and some time, so long and so going to take here.
And to practice patience, it doesn't mean, you know, just trying to bear it with like grinding our teeth and really having like suffering inside. That's not the meaning of patience. The meaning of patience.
Suffering marva yutang kora not sare. Zopa gomse so duri gyande ya mares. So simnal be control be control sana yang khale kecha ma hi je duri gyande ya mares.
Practicing patience, it doesn't mean, like Rinpoche corrected me, saying it's not like about suffering inside necessarily, but it's like practicing patience is not about just trying to bear with it, like not just like having the anger inside, but not saying it like a single word, like making a very strong effort not to say a single bad word. That's not the meaning of practicing patience.
Okay.
The price of patience, it means that one remains very peaceful, that one remains undisturbed inside. One keeps one's peace of mind. And the way to do that.
Zopa gomse di marese. Zopa gomse di karese sona korang bage chek korang lug cholan duksha ina chek duksha hegan namje duksha kontra chediana di korang ge kyongre nyingje da korang kyong de lunga isam chawa chawa duksha kyong den yo asong da korang mitsina kangi chegre samne so so ge ji karse sona samuten taden an so so long kumar zopa gomse den res.
So if the way to develop patience in this situation is realizing that the bad action of the other and the anger of the other is not one's own fault. If the other person is saying bad words or showing bad expressions or getting angry with oneself, this is not one's mistake. This is not one's fault. But like the actions the other is doing, the bad actions are the fault of the other and not one's own fault. And so if one realizes that it's not one's fault, but the fault of the other, the mistake of the other. So at that time, actually the way to think will be that because the other person has bad actions and bad way of thinking, bad way of speaking, that's why they will have trouble. That's why they will face a lot of difficulties in their life.
For example, one's enemy, they have bad action, they have then bad speech, they have certain bad thinking. Then you think, oh, then he has then bad action, bad speech, bad thinking, or why you think like that? You immediately you then uncomfortable. Main anger is coming. If you think like that, oh, no problem. He has the bad action. He has bad speech. He has bad wrong way of thinking. He has many anger. He has many wrong views anger. So because of that, then he has many sufferings coming. Maybe his life is very difficult. Why? Because he has many wrong action, wrong speech, wrong then thinking. Because of that, his life has many sufferings coming. If you think like that, immediately once then not anger, very then just relax, then another together, then automatically then compassion is coming. 제동 파쇼데 조람 도샤 책 도샤 홍포지 룽아 있으면 저와 도샤 지는 메히나 너바기야다 된 책이요나 아니 닝제 한닝제야 코고네 책 루 조람 도샤레 그체히는 도샤레 삼다다 도샤레 아코 무지나 강이 책을 닝제 삼나 밤상 소소 용난 거 말에는 콜 닝지게 되세.
So if we see the other having like bad actions and speaking in a bad way, thinking in a bad way, so immediately, like if we think immediately that because of that, the other will have a lot of trouble, they will experience a lot of suffering and a lot of trouble in their life. So then we don't get angry thinking like that, but actually immediately it brings
wrong way. Not sorry. 파조 대가 룽아 있으면 저와 독자 연구요나 그 룽아 있으면 저와 논리 방법도 아쿠 무지나 강에 책을 삼 그래서 아니 흰 소소 논란 거 말에 나는 콜에 대화랑 하면 돼 그래 딱 거기에 콜에 강에 책이 와서 당에 들어가 가시는 데 그래서
if we see the other has a lot of mistakes in their actions of body, speech and mind, then immediately seeing that mistakes, if we think that because of these mistakes, the other will have a lot of trouble, a lot of suffering. So thinking in this way, we don't get angry with the mistakes of the other. And not only that, but it brings compassion, thinking about them.
누바만도 꿀롱듯이 야고지데 직전 누바만 지고만도 그게 네 조람 독자도 요와 성장
Because the other has the bad behavior,
그렇게 책했단 야고 매바 성장
because the other is not speaking in a good way,
무슨 땅땅 누르방고 요와 성장
because they have a lot of mistakes in their way of thinking.
멋지나 강님하고 책이 돼서
They will face a lot of trouble in their life.
노다 간신은 미치징나 대기 용거서나 소소가 룽아 있으면 제가 상보치나 아니 소소 미치 대기 용거 소소 룽아 있으면 제가 눈치치나 소소 미치나 강해지다 그거 눈치먹고 용거에 와서 그 미치나 강해 되게 아카카 이제 공안나시 대기고 동의 거 말. 이나야 그거 배 룽아 있으면 제가 되는 눈치먹고도 근데 와서 그 미치나 강해 되게 아카카 삼는 그런 몇 제발에 그래서
So if one thinks how the bad actions of the other is creating cause of suffering, realizing that having good actions and being a good person is cause of happiness, and the other is creating the opposite, creating bad actions, which are the cause of suffering. So realizing that the other is creating so much cause of suffering and feeling really feeling for the other, feeling this poor person is creating so much cause of suffering. What can I do for them? And in this way, we really create compassion.
그러니까 남주장께 저렇게 되면 나 카톡견 결정 못해. 근데 말해. 남주나기 저렇게 된 팬도야 말이야. 나 값을 받아 되고 그래. 팬난 가르쳐서는 공안하기 되기 거래스.
Just like me, the other deserves to be happy.
이나 그게 즉 누구 잡아치다 날에 그렇게 다는 샘 삼단단에 누르만 것도 와스.
But in the way that they speak, in the way that they conduct their body, in the way they think, they have a lot of mistakes, right? And because of this, of course, other people will have trouble. And I also might have trouble because of that. But whatever trouble we will experience is really small. Because the biggest trouble will be experienced by the other.
미치가 룽아 있으면 제가 독자지나 미 젬발라 야차 주스 노바 기세그래 야차 부치탕 바드 코란 노요.
If a person is doing bad actions with body, speech, and mind, they might give 10% of the trouble, maybe maximum 10% of the trouble to the other people. But 90% of the trouble will be experienced by oneself.
근데 말에 야차 전 노요인데 개문도 하나 야차 고시 코란 강이 되게 있었나? 아니 랑을 봐. 제가 인지를 그래.
So even if I experience 10% of the entire trouble, it's not a big deal.
Their experience. 그 가르쳐서는 그게 잡아치바 때는 나 야차 준노나 개문도 간서 코란 야차 고시 코란 놓고 누가 썼는데 아무 제가 레벨에서
Even if the actions of the other will give me 10% of suffering, so that's not a big deal. But the really terrible sin here is what happens to the other, because the other is making these big mistakes, and because of these mistakes of body, speech, and mind, they will experience 99% of the trouble, and they really have the big trouble. If a person is doing a bad action,
잡아친게 독자 코랑 잡아친게 독자 친게 코랑 고치 담바 코랑 노래 야채 쭉 메젬바 노세 그래 제단 메젬바 제기 잡아 독자 지기 요나 별디는 소소롱 난 거야 말 간선은 그 잡아 독자 지는 나 야채 주스 노세 그래 내게면 도스 간선은 코랑 야채 고치 노고요 되다 인지 공그레스
so if person is doing a bad action, a person who is doing a bad action will experience the 90% of the entire trouble. And even if they are able to give me some trouble, it will never be more than 10%. But the 90% of the trouble is something that the person doing the bad action will experience.
일단 그런 거 제가 도저 지할 때는 그런 야채 고치 걸고 그런 야채 고치 놓고요나 맞지는 나 가르치는 거 놓는 거예요.
So if the other is making a bad action, and they will have to experience 90% of the trouble, what's the big deal of me having to experience 10%?
나 진노바데 쿠그데 게임 나랑 삼탄타래. 콩을 노바 기긴 독삼네. 벨리데는 야시진 노요. 같이 노바 기와나 콩을 노독 마삼데 오케이요 말에 근데 용 쓰기를 전 다동연 소소노가 가요 말. 가지죠 노.
And even the 10% of harm that oneself is experiencing actually depends on oneself. The 10% is coming because oneself is not thinking in the right way. The reason that oneself experiences the 10% harm is because one sees the action of the person as bad and getting angry with the other. But if oneself is not getting angry with the other, so there will not be any harm to oneself.
야시치 노야데 가르치여 장이 섬탄다 노버텐 야시치 노여. 수섬탄다 만난 야시치 간도 말.
The 10% that one is experiencing harm is because of wrong way of thinking from one's own side. If one would not think in a wrong way, so there will not be any harm at all.
아이스나 쿵가 노바킹도 삼 안에 데지 말 노바킹도 삼 이게네 소소 삼나 강조 먼저 따와 있는 이게네 심마기바다 컨트롤하야 상황 연구여라.
Because it starts from oneself thinking the other is harming me. And then after thinking the other is harming me, one starts having all this random thoughts about it.
Other is harming me. Other is no good people. He is bad people. Why? Because he harming me. If you wrong thinking like that, then you drink a person, then you harming, then you uncomfortable, and then you anger. If you thinking that other people, then bad actions, bad sense, then bad thinking like that, you think, oh, this is possible because this is not me mistake. This is his mistake because of the wrong action, wrong speech, wrong thinking. Then he has many sufferings coming. If you thinking like that, and once there's no intent traveling. The social cognitive, so some cognitive, some cognitive, but Hansan enjoy.
So whether one gets into trouble or not, it really depends on the way we think, on the way one thinks. It's actually quite beautiful. The entire situation, the entire trouble completely depends on what we think.
Similar 강의만 보체대야 가서서는 먼저 강의들의 용어에 값을 먼저 강의 시작하는 치료 장장 답이지 아마도 수수쌤을 지가 대 답이 맞아서 강의 테디래. 강의 테베 값을 치료를 강의 대 시작하는 따야요. 이나 치료를 대 강의 대 세야요. 이나 강의 시작하는 야휴디 수쌤이 쌤들 수순 대버 인지바 당하나 개요 말에서는 쌤들 인지바 당하나 강의 참여 받자래.
So we spend our life always thinking that our trouble is coming from outside. And as long as we think the trouble is coming from outside, not depending on us, we... When we have a lot of trouble, we always try to solve the trouble outside. And by trying to solve our trouble outside, we can solve some of the trouble. But if we want to never have trouble at all, to solve all the trouble, the only way is to change one's mind.
Never 말해.
If we want to completely eradicate all the trouble that we have in our mind, so the way to do that is to change our way of thinking. The very moment one has changed one's wishes, then there's no more trouble.
민망보지 강의 책이 여러 강의 책받을 때는 세미나를 좀 많이 받아 밑에 강의 책 된게 망보여래 강의 가르친 시트고요 말해 강의 시야 답람 치료 장에 책이 되면 수심 그 도가 기바 땅 되면 이 강의를 심부 도가 기바 땅 하나는 강의 시차래지.
These days in the world there are many people who face very big problems, like in their subjective experience there is a very big trouble and they're not able to get out of that trouble. But the way to be free, the way to get out of this trouble is to change the way of thinking. The way one has changed one's way of thinking. These days in the world, meeting with a lot of trouble, we search for many ways to solve the trouble. But we're still not able to solve it, right?
가르치 바래.
Why?
소소셈 도번지와 땅마도 경험.
Well, it's all about whether one was able to change the wishes in one's mind.
강의세요 타블람도 신호라 때서 때 망치 강의세요 타블람 주어도 셈이요.
So if we want to solve the trouble of the mind, so some things that can help us solve the trouble of the mind are outside, but the majority of causes to solve the trouble of the mind are actually inside, in the mind.
소소 도번지와 땅도 강의상 시차래.
The very moment one has changed one wishes, actually the entire trouble is gone.
소소 도바 가도는 자꾸 섬되는 강의 가도는 체대그래.
As long as one keeps holding very tight, very strongly at one's wishes, one will always get into trouble.
그래서 강의세요 타블람도 소소 도번지와 땅이지.
The way to solve one's trouble is to change one's wishes.
Is clear?
Yes, thank you so much.
항상 개침벌에 되지.
It's extremely important.
맹게 그 결의 값을라 직내마디 얘기하더니 긴 마주라. 단단히 가래 지금 더하라 유시하다는데 팬도 그래. 내마 직나 고송다 디인지를 상에 되시는 좀 마페 김지들. 지시는 단되게도. 아니 any question? Whatever you question, this is very good. Yeah. 강의서는 얘기 말씀 준다마지 희게 되나요? 디 팬들 마페 따지요래. 소소 랑그 강의도 시에샤다는 이들된 소소 영화당 아니 상당당된 희바 있는 데니 팬그래.
It's important for me to know what is your questions, because if I would just say what's on my mind, I'm not sure it will be the right thing for you. But if you tell me what's troubling you or what's important for you to know, then I can know what to speak about.
아니 저번 TV 값을 하셔도 배 자신 뭐 10월에 시작에 강조 먼저 되는 지금 말씀 심트로시 되지 말해. 심띵 소소 파마당 변식에 제바 난시지 장 심띵이베 제비게 쳐봤다는다. 아니 랭장이 심띵이 제비게 랭자바이나 아니 강시야타나 야휴데.
And asking the questions, like one should not think that the other person is really like a holy person or very important, and in this way to ask, being a little bit embarrassed, but really out of closeness, like between like parents and a child, like a mother and a child, like with really feeling of closeness and care and love, and with that feeling of love, asking and answering, so this will really give the best benefit. Out of closeness, seeing that both of us are the same, being human beings. The difference is that I'm a monk and you are lay people, but other than that, we are exactly the same. We are all the same, wishing for happiness. We are all the same, not wanting to suffer. We are all the same, being human beings. Also, from the point of view of Buddhism, we see all sentient beings, everyone as our parents. We see them.
세상이 그말 랭게 저바트네 시든 하나 즈포 히워시네 히워시워듯이 랍자겸 즈포 히워시 지금에 심띵띵네 팬야게 그런게 아니 파저디 용조시한 소소 용조 단대를 거는 강도 제도 제네 심바 하사 타녀부 건데 시ke시게요.
So also for me, when I give the answer, when there is questions and answers, I don't answer by seeing myself as like this very important, very holy person, but just seeing the other person. When I speak, I don't think that I'm really important. But from the depths of my heart, seeing the other as my family. And with caring, like asking myself, what is the best thing I can do in order to benefit the other? So with this motivation, I speak.
그다음에 결혼서 희우희우디 다른 것들은 제대로 말해 소소랑 배직 남이 지금도 희야가 이거는 계속 제단 나도 샘팅된 찍을 때 희야요로 팽그래.
So you guys, you shouldn't see me as something very like far away, but really as family, and with a great feeling of closeness to ask the question.
샘팅을 타이보다 대요 손안에 샘팅을 계셔 소 희야의 연구라고 강이 당보라 타는 것이 되는 희르희르 저버져야 당해요.
And seeing the other is extremely close, so also one will really have the wish to speak about what really troubles oneself, the biggest like things that really trouble. But as long as one sees the other as someone far away, so there will not be a lot of like wish to speak about it.
고추징게 나도 주징게 말에 세야당 고고요래 세야당 나도 미캬레 고요 말에 세야 딘삼도 강조마지 당데 나는 가서 저버트는 용마로 정말 뱉대 이께서 매바치네 주지 미지께서 요 말에 그저와도 미지께서 요 말에 스나도 대반도 봐 찍봐 도매문도 봐 찍봐 니바 손당은도 명소 편지 명소 거들시 찍찍하지 편도 가르치고 살아 어떤 로는 시바이는 편도 용도
because if you start thinking, oh, he's a religious person, or like a Buddhist, and we are not Buddhist or non-religious, or religious but not Buddhist, or he's a monk and we are lay people, and then it creates this distance between us. But not thinking like that, but thinking, yeah, he's a human being, I'm a human being, we are the same being, human beings, and also we are the same wanting to be happy, we're exactly the same not wanting to suffer, we're exactly the same. So seeing each other as exactly the same, and from that place asking the question, it will make a huge difference.
Any question? 그것도에 맞다. 저번도에
거기도 주화민도
당기디기 저번디기 렌텍송에서 아자들라다. Ben 가르친 줄.
Someone, very nice, thank you. Someone said, very nice, thank you, Rinpoche.
Martha Rinpoche is saying, please, if you can ask the woman from before, if the answer Rinpoche gave was okay.
She said it was, yeah.
Yes, it was really insightful. I'm just, I find it really hard to deal with sometimes, and yeah, it's just I'm going to try to put that to use and try to see her point of view, however hard it is, and try to understand her a bit better. But yeah, it's definitely not an easy task, but I'll try to work on it.
Something ne tuchenang di le lapo yomai na nie tapshegi. Netang le lapo yomai na nie tapshegi.
So some tanshojere.
Mainly depends on the way of thinking.
So leelawa insamna leelawa chagre leelawa mainsamna kalikawa chade. So some tanshojere.
If one thinks it's easy, then it will be easy. If one thinks it's difficult, it will be difficult. It's mainly about the way of thinking. Also, it's the way of whether one has the habit. If one has the habit, then it's easy. If there's no habit, then it's difficult. Also, on one hand, when we think about, we ask ourselves, what is Dharma? So the reason there is Dharma is in order to solve trouble. If there was no trouble, there would be no need to have Dharma. If no matter how many bad words you might tell me, To whatever extent you tell me bad words, I will become offended more and more. Then I will have trouble. But if no matter how many bad words you tell me, I will think, yeah, he can say as much bad sins as you want. It will not make me any worse in any degree. It will not give me any trouble. Then I will really not have any trouble. So it really depends on the way of thinking. Gondakne yakpo komason. Many of us, when someone else gets angry with us, we also get angry. But harming us. When someone else is harming us, we get angry. But actually, why should we get angry?
Why when we are angry? Then some people say someone they harming us, we are immediately then unhappy and uncomfortable and immediately then angry. Why? Because this is not wrong. This is other people wrong. The could not change the my courage long longer. They when it's in a cool do lana, I do chakmara. Koyakolanga yakochakmara, courage in a long longer.
So when someone else is harming us, we get angry. But actually, why do we get angry? If the other is harming us, it's not our mistake. It doesn't make us bad. It is the other person who becomes bad by making bad actions, not ourselves.
Yemba cannot do shall and so long longer. Make Yemba cannot yapor and other gagger. When it's in a courage in it. Maran Yadamaya sang Arang Chavala there, could be sickly ramen.
If someone else is saying that we are bad, we get angry. And when someone else is saying that we are good, we feel joy. But in reality, why? If the other is saying that one is bad, it doesn't make oneself bad. And if they're saying that oneself is good, it doesn't make us good. Why do we feel so? Why are we so activated by it?
Not sang some cooler, rally the who do shall do not do such a Koyahora Yakochayona or that, who do shall not long my keeps in together. When it's in the Koranga, me, Gazet Korang, so sometimes Yapo do shall I'm going to say Yapolam, the Korang, the John the Yonde, the Maton, the Nala, the came to one. And to Caricini, long.
If our quality would really be determined by the other person, and if the other is saying that we are bad, it will really make us bad. And if the other is saying that we are good, it will really make us good, then yeah, we will have some reason to be angry if someone else is saying we are bad. But whether we are good or bad does not depend at all on the other. If we have good actions, if we are good people, so we are good. And if we make bad actions and mistakes, so we are bad. And the same also for the other. If they are doing bad actions and making mistakes, so it makes them bad. But if they say about us that we are bad, we shouldn't get angry. It's not making us bad at all.
Mondo, check out the bank sojourn. The Munichina could do Shalanga, do such channel, not long on together. Koyapo Langa Yapochando, and gun and degrees.
So actually, if the other is saying that we are bad, if that would make us bad, so then there would be a reason to be angry. And if the
other people saying you bad people, then immediately become bad people. Of course, then I'm angry. Other people saying you are then very good people, then immediately become very good people. Then of course I'm very happy, enjoy. But not like that. Whatever the same people saying, oh, you bad people. If you then not angry, not bad acting, not bad speech, not thinking wrong, then you thinking is bad. You always very good people, not bad people. Other people saying, oh, you are very good people, always saying like that. But you always say then bad acting, bad speech, bad thinking wrong. You're not going good than people. So it's dependent on oneself. Oneself good action, good speech, good thinking, always then one's good people. Once acting and speech and thinking is wrong, always then no good people. It's dependent on oneself. nor so other people. So then so sangin kar yong man so rak le di yore se zambeling mit sang me kyana dusha lam ne ya so dusha chi ma chi te yang so dusha mare.
So it depends on oneself. Even if the entire universe, if the entire people in the world will say that you are bad, but if one is not doing anything bad, so one will not become bad in the slightest degree.
So then zambeling mit sang me yakpo lam so yakpo ma chin yakpo mar ba.
And even if the entire people in the world will say that one is good, it will not make oneself good, right?
So then nangshu na labja kare.
So what is the advice in Buddhism?
Mi himbi kyana dusha ra gase la na de ke yo mare se so dusha de mi himba rak le mar so range ra le so dusha ma de himbi ka dusha la na kyana long lang go ke yo mare se.
The advice in Buddhism is saying that even if other people are saying that you are bad, it's no problem at all. The main thing is whether one is good or bad is in one's own hands. And if when others saying that one is bad doesn't make oneself bad, why should we get angry? If when other people are saying that one is bad, one gets angry, then one becomes bad. And so what's the point of getting angry? If other people are saying that one is bad, and then one gets angry and starts showing bad expressions and saying bad words, acting in a bad way with one's body, then one really becomes a bad person. But if other people are saying that one is bad, but one keeps having a good heart and really having love and caring, compassion for everyone, so one does not become a bad person at all. One remains a good person. If one is doing good actions of body, speech, and mind, at all times, one is a good person.
So the
So also for me, I'm also a human being, and so in the past, before I studied like Buddhism a lot in the past, if people would say bad things about me, I would get.
Before I'm not the listening, not contemplation, not meditation. Before then, before that, some people say, oh, you are very bad. Some people say, oh, you are very good. It's little thinking like that. That I'm little then happy and unhappy like that. Then now is I'm study and contemplation, then meditation little now is I have. So whatever then people saying, and little maybe few minutes. Some people say, oh, you are very good. Few minutes, maybe it's 1-2 minutes. It's little few little then feelings were. Then some people say, oh, you're not so good. You're wrong, like that. I said 1 minute, 2 minutes. Fear is a little sad. It's only to 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then after, or then gone out. Whatever saying, then he's the saying you are very good and not become very good. He's saying that you are bad and not become then bad people. Why? Because I'm good people, bad people is this responsibility for me, is dependent for me. I'm very good then. I go good very acting and speech and thinking is well, always very good. I'm there thinking and thinking acting, then speech is wrong. No good people. This is dependent my actions. But it's speech mental actions. This is very important. If you're thinking like that, then I am tindi yamaso tindi samdandi marang ka sangye de deduk sama marang rawandu ba ani ta semne pe so hide do senna loto le do so deduk sangye sama so rawamena mehi ba ji ta de kon ani semju chakra ba marang deduk da gari honda mayo jawa sama ngana rawa yo so ani semju le do.
And when I think like this, I really have freedom. I see that whether I'm good or bad, whether I'm happy or sad, it really depends on myself. And so I know it's in my own hands, and it makes me feel peaceful, also makes me feel encouraged, really courageous. As long as my happiness is in the hands of others, as long as whether I'm good or bad, happy or sad, is always in the hand of the other person, then I feel...
나랑 대둑 sama 나랑 rapal la 나랑 chaval rale yores.
Whether I'm good or bad, it's in my hands. It depends on my actions.
제가 나랑 상이 가리 용말 때 나랑 라마 요와 선다 나 셈 히데케가 소소 가그라 소소 상이 가리 용말 소소 라마 요나 나 가그라.
And since that's my own being a good person, or being good or bad, happy or suffering, since that's in my own hands, of course I feel joy, I feel peace knowing that.
그래서 나랑 라마 계속해요.
Because I have 100% freedom, right?
나랑 야도 가리 용말 때 나랑 라레도 매 힘바레면도.
If I'm good or bad, happy or sad, this is in my own hands. It's not in the hand of the other, right? And in the same way, whether I have happiness or suffering, it depends on the way I'm thinking. It's in my own hands. And as long as one is doing good actions with body, speech, and mind, and being a good person, so one will always be happy. As long as one has mistakes in the way of acting with the body, mistakes of way of acting with the speech and the mind, so there will always be trouble.
나랑 그 대둑 참만 소소를 라와 요와다 대양도 소소 삼탄탄 라레디와 나디 하고도 마 셈팅이 뽑하다 소소 댕주레스.
And so hearing the advice of Buddhism saying that one's happiness and suffering is completely in one's own hands, and really understanding it's really like this. My happiness and suffering really is in my own hands. If I know how to think, and if I'm a good person, then definitely I will have the happiness. So understanding that, I really became very encouraged and had peace in my mind. Whether one has happiness or suffering depends on one's way of thinking. Is in one's own, is up to oneself. And this really brings courage, right? Courage to one's mind. As long as one thinks, as long as I think that my happiness is in the hands of the other, then I feel like I have no freedom. And then I feel like I don't have the power to do that. But whether I have happiness or suffering, it depends on my conduct and my way of thinking. It's up to me. If one really has an unmistaken way of acting, an unmistaken way of thinking, an unmistaken way of speaking, then one automatically will always have peace and happiness. And so in short, the entirety of happiness and suffering completely depends on the way we think.
대둑 참마다 쌈노 땅 쇼치레스 쌈땅다지 마릭나 키라나 가세 요나야 펜도야 말레스 쌈땅다 릭소나 강에 가세 레나야 비강 수 시대 쭉쭉 말레스.
So sorry. So the entirety of happiness and suffering is completely depends on oneself. If one thinks in the wrong way, even slightly in the wrong way, then even if one has everything outside, one will still have trouble. But if one thinks in the right way, then even if one is facing with a lot of trouble and difficulty from outside, one will always be okay.
제단 당하나게 소소 베데 가상 배심에 도시하나 심피샤고 메트링 배심 맞상 거서야도.
And in the same way, even if one was a bad person before, in the past, one can still change it. One can become a good person from today onwards. So also in one's own hands. So why should we ever become disheartened? In the same way, if one can really eliminate, if one can eradicate all the cause of suffering in 100% and create all the cause of happiness, 100% all the cause of happiness, then automatically, of course, naturally, we will be free from all the results of suffering, and we will only have result of 100% happiness. So if we have the power to reach a state which is completely free from suffering and has the best happiness all the time, why should we ever be disheartened?
And
also thinking in a very small and uptight way, narrow-minded. So this will always give trouble to oneself. And also the other way around. If we think in a broad way, very broad-minded, we will always have happiness and peace. And so at all times, it's extremely important to make our mind as vast and broad, as expansive as possible.
And
so what is it that makes one's mind become small or narrow? It is always thinking about oneself, always thinking me. And in this way, the mind becomes very uptight. And the opposite, thinking in a very broad way.
Why?
So if one always thinks me, so the mind becomes very small, very uptight. And why? Because oneself is just one person. And so only thinking about one person, of course, the mind is very small. But when one always thinks about everyone, about all sentient beings, so thinking about all sentient beings, the mind becomes very vast because the object of the mind is extremely vast, as vast as can be. And when the mind is vast,
the mind is very narrow, then always then automatically coming suffering is coming. Then man is then very wise, then always peaceful is coming. If we thinking if you're thinking like that, thinking like that, only me is only one. Then one man is very narrow. It's very small. Then all the suffering is coming. Oh, me suffering. Or today suffering, or 1 week suffering, 1 year suffering. Then 1 month before I have many suffering. Suffering, me suffering, many countries. Then very narrow minds. If you thinking, or the sentient being thinking like that, or the sentient being, or then human being. If you thinking like that, there are many human beings that not counting sentient being. Because of you thinking like that, then your mind is very wise. Very wise. Then if you're thinking like that, then your mind is very, very peaceful.
the entirety of happiness and suffering is just a way of thinking.
If you, then happiness and then suffering is just you thinking. If your thinking is little well, then happiness is immediately coming. If your thinking little is wrong, then all the sufferings then immediately coming. So whatever you then happiness coming and suffering coming, this is depend on one's thinking. If then sometimes then problem outside and physics and then family and partner and friend and country and weather and sickness, many problems coming. That times you think, oh, no problem. Of course, this is samsara. No problem. It's okay. This is impermanent. Not always changing. No problem. If you thinking, no problem. If you're thinking that, then this is no problem. If suffering is little than physics and little problem is coming, then you said, oh, this is big problem. Is you thinking like that? This is big problem. The mainly you think this is problem, yes, then you problem is coming. You thinking, oh, this is no problem, yes. Now it's you very good successful, no problem. You no problem. Any question? Many people are there.
Yes. Now there's 9 people.
And I have many drink and many Tibetan Losar. I think I share this one, but I didn't said not then sending. If you are coming Dharamsala, please come. I hope then they keep it.
Thank you. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight.
That Marta to 가세요, 맞아.
Oh, patience also. How much time do we have? Zoksong. So if we are out of time, let's do just 5 minutes meditation.
When we are then later than standing like that, then when breathing out, go to outside, once thinking, oh, the suffering and the problem, go to outside thinking like that. When breathing inside, once thinking, oh, the happiness and happiness and good luck is coming inside. I thinking like that. The ones do not wandering. Okay? 나오는 옥마 라베 가서 동네다 강에다 생고 동네 참아 치로 신송 삼바 나온 오야 용의 값을 내기 참아 야 용송 삼바 전에 셈마인와 전에 나온 거는 삼당대아.
So we'll just sit like quietly for 2 minutes, and as we exhale, as the air goes outside, so thinking that all the trouble and all the suffering completely go outside, and as the air comes inside, thinking that all the happiness, all the peace is coming inside together with there. And so doing this for 2 minutes.
안타나 힘까지 생각나베 강이요나. 그런 강이데 수직 분야를 맞대버치네. 강이 나를 거기서죠. 제가 내려고 대신. 뭐 제가 저기요 삼바지 내려고 삼바죠. 배도스라.
And also if you have trouble, if one has trouble, if you have like a really big trouble, don't hold that trouble, like don't deal with it alone. Think that you give me the trouble and we share it, that we share between the two of us. So think that you are giving me to share with you the trouble.
다른데 거기 잡아야는 가서 뭐 고추 정도가 걔랑 그 강에 가세요. 나가 뭐 고추를 거기 잡아야는 걔랑 강에 총도 창으로.
And having the trouble, so like if we share the trouble together, we are like 9 or 10 people. So if we share the trouble, so instead of being faced by one person, it is divided into 9 pieces. So it's easier to face it. And so when we are happy, we should share our happiness. And when we suffer, we should also share our suffering. Not keeping the trouble inside. And so I will be praying, and at the same time really think that
meditation. I will meditation. You all the suffering gone out. Then I thinking like that. You thinking all the suffering is then gone out. You thinking like that, please. 대단히 계란도 셋나 강에 다음에 받자지 검자인 계란도 근데 나와서 검자피아.
So I will meditate really with the wish for all of your trouble to completely stop existing, to be gone completely. And please also think in this way.
Okay, now breathing and said, then outside, then just relax 1 minute. Not in thinking, not in checking. Just 1 minute. Just relax. What is it? That didn't can also go check Kangin Tang, Simka Kangin Tang, Nata Tang, Zotang, Mapa Charge, and get Molam Yakin can also go to some of the check Pento Johnson, some about the Chiang Kanji, Nata Kangin Tang, Mapa Charge, Molam Yakin similar, taking out Lula Deji, similar Shidea, Molam Yakin can also Pento Johnson, some Bachia.
And so now I will pray for all the trouble that you have in the mind and all the sickness to become completely non-existent. And please think like this, that all the trouble in the mind.
Sickness, now ever pray when or the your then problem is the physical coarseness and the mental problem and the body ever then the uncomfortable. I may men were praying gone outside you think like that. And you also 제당이 뭐는 잡이가 소 심나 강이 동이 참아도 몇 받час 자진 뭐는 잡이 저나도 몇 받час 좀 받지.
So I will be praying right now in this way, that whatever trouble and sickness you have, whatever trouble of mind and sickness, that it will all become completely non-existent. And it's important at the same time, please think together with me that whatever trouble you have in mind, whatever sickness of body, it becomes completely non-existent. Please think like this. Thinking that all the trouble you had are completely gone, they will not return again.
Thinking like that.
Think like that.
Yawa Java Dr. Jamajin Lova Jigi, Gormajin Lova Jiola, the mother Jin Lova Jig, Amaka Mother Jin Lova Jigi, John the Division Lova Jig, Mother Jin Lova Jig, and Wanga Division. Ralo Zav Dr. Jin Lova Jig, Rachur of Jin Lova Jig, Rajin Lova Jig, Rambazin Lova Jig, Kalojin Lova Jig, Romashi of Singing Lova Jig, Lamaji Bevin Lova Jig. I chose to know the Jin Lova Jig, Yavaton Kavajin Lova Jig, Ramajin Jaman, or the daily capsule on the Tom with their base on Jin Lova Jig. Yang chosen就半年了嘛，当半年进行了这个接，那么通过天北西这边都是交边的上年嘛，就往外了，就讲的那想去这边把钱给金融这边的话拉走，绿军的大娘给他用不到，按照拉走，身体都给他，大家都全给他建设了，是吧？首先嘛，当这种那个等同社团去活动了，这把都在那经过拉走。那说明了领导把当3000万就往出拉走吧，身边中国那把当老大想每天1000万个对嘛，因为前面给你把前面对面交谈去。对他那个他们送完这些，交完这些，没完这些，在这上帮他们看着的，而且边就他们就找到他自己，弄这个有点东西，哪怕也经过的国内过程边一些完就是说些东西找不着我的，那么别的这些什么都给我们的国人这个就是给我现在结果他们现在没让国人那么见着。那么别的这些全部让他们听见，现在我的现在这边的那么的没，下去把他们接了，都这让现在给那。좀 내리 배도 주시 뭐라 되는데 다음에 좀 내리 배도 주시 뭐 고선 도다 로만데 남지 lunga 있어 예매 신경을 봐줘 라리랑 그 도게 홍을 원선 저게消息 개발서 다시 왔다는 시간이 좀 오전 아마 지를 전달한다. 이렇게 봐서 던질 원선 저거 더 저런 친이 겐네 돈도 받아 좀 소화하시면 뒤도는 라리랑 그 도게 홍을 원선消息 개발서 다시 왔다는 시간이 좀 오전 아마 지를 전달한다. 이렇게 봐서 던질 원선 돌지도 저런 친이 겐네 돈도 받아 좀 소화하시면 라리랑 도게 홍을 원선 저게消息 개발서 다시 왔다는 시간이 좀 오전 아마 지를 전달한다. 배下去 봐서 던질 거对我下去你下去把生产进来的现金了那边也得把生产进不是的车上去给那东的话他们就没送过去嘛这早吧嘛家把这些电备线的那么也能准备信息情况的都这样做完的那大了的了随便那么就没得了家了家把这些电备线的准备信息情况的都这样做完的那大了所以的了随便那么就没得了家了家把这些电备线的准备信息情况的都做完的大了所以对了，虽然那我们就没得了，家把这些电器老当，就没信息就都已经做完的，到时候得了，虽然那我们就没得了，家那个人动大家就把当门的那边那这把东，对吧？你就不能说在西地讲的了，想去生叫人过去，马街班解决去接班的，那个样放的对吧？东尼的话人过去，马街班的解决去接班的，放的对吧？你没得，现在你没讲的，现在打的，过去生在小个人动了就把门的那边那这把。根本就想把这个在西地讲的老家的，人家早晚车人的没见了，有的家就把这些你没得，现在你没讲的，你现大的这些光小生的这些小事，我的真的现这些，安那的呢，讲做六个那在那什么刚有那做的说300倍，可是多嘛些300个样事情，我的说基本上当嘛的什么什么当刚一点车上的东西什么就嘛下，刚一点的什么年嘛的，我的这些么那也会下把上不忙是这。我听的其他人说什么，现在用过，基本用过的，伢们都样就是这种说呢，那马达的伢们都样这活动呢，在国家当老中央那些当的嘞，国家的马达忙不好过的，我讲是伢们都看的的那些，参加的就是说呢，我这样这样变动的那些这个的，咱们都支持。
And so thinks that from now onwards, all the trouble of the mind and all the sickness of body completely disappear, will never return. And on top of this, to create the causes from one side for them not to return, it's really important to have this vast way of thinking, broad-minded, and as little small-minded, narrow-minded way of thinking, to think as much as possible on the benefit of everyone, all sentient beings. And also, if you have the time, so Marta has a lot of knowledge and experience and a lot of knowledge about the meditations of like breathing meditation and how to develop love, compassion, wisdom. So if you have the time,
if you have time, then visit Marta, because Marta is many years then to get and me. We are then meditation, then breath meditation, and the Lojong Pan practice, and many different meditation. She knows the many different meditation. Then you are share together some meditation thinking as well. So doing like that every day, doing like that, then I think this is very good opportunity, then benefit. So then yeah, sometimes you have time. So we are sharing today like that. Today is many question as like that. Maybe one day we are together and I can be my meeting. We are then more meditation. I think if you benefit, so I'm very enjoyable. So I hope you are also then very good, healthy and happiness and happy life. The most important, mainly once thinking well, once the good, the wise man, not narrow man, thinking well. Whatever the suffering and then problems coming, not giving up, do not grasping, you throw it. This is garbage. So everything is once then good action. So once thinking well, so this is very important. Every day once thinking again, then good motivation and good action and good thinking. This is a virtue. This is a cause of then happiness. So once parents and each other patient, each other love, each other then helping each other, patient each other, then trust each other, love each other. This is a cause of very good and happiness. This is very important. So of course I'm many well praying. I hope you are all good life, good happy, and then good successful life. So mainly once thinking is well, this is very important. So thank you very much. This you give me this opportunity. I'm many well praying. Thank you. Yeah, Marta.
Thank you. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Good evening. Bye. Yeah. See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you.
See you next time.
Have a nice day.